Okay, here's a video about all the landscaping at 2735 Westwood Boulevard. I was just going to take a snapshot of everything I know about what the previous owner did and what we've been doing. So I'm out here by the driveway, and these are lilacs. We love these. They're super hardy. They just sort of come up everywhere, have beautiful flowers in the spring. There's one dead spot here. I've been sort of trying to encourage that guy and that guy and that guy to grow. I planted two of those. I don't think he's gonna make it, but yeah, when we first bought the property, these were huge. They were like 12 feet high, so they will happily get much bigger than this, but I sort of trimmed out all the big stuff and turned it into more of a hedge. So that'll need to be done again someday. I don't know if the soil here is not as good or something, but yeah, they're coming up. They're trying. That'll fill it in eventually. Some kind of a succulent, I think, over here. I think these are volunteers. They just sort of like the shade over in this spot. They will take over here, and they tried to take over there. So these things are really hardy as well, as long as they're in the right spot. Rocks. There are several places of rocks in the yard that have been cleaned up. So this was all packed with dirt, and I dug it up and sifted it and put a plastic weed barrier down. So that's all cleared up now. There is some mint. Comes back every year. It's just starting. There is. What are the yellow ones called?
I don't know.
I know, we looked it up once. So and these are like little yellow flowering plants that come up. So.
There's chocolate mint in the middle.
Chocolate mint. Oh, is that what it's called? Okay, cool. So yeah, we love this hedge. It catches all the garbage on windy days, so you gotta like pull the plastic bags and stuff out of it. So let's see, and we pulled out a couple of the lilacs here at the end because it's such a blind spot to pull out of, so that's why that's kind of mulched, just so you can see when you're backing out of the driveway. Over here we have 4 peony bushes, especially this one does really good. They get huge blossoms in the spring. They tend to kind of flop if you don't support them, so we got these metal stake gate things on them. And then between all of those is irises, pretty thick here. They got a little thinner over there. And there's some lilacs trying to grow up in the middle of the irises. So that one over here, there's one over there. Anyway, yeah, the lilacs grow everywhere except for that bare spot. So yeah, this planter bed the previous owner did. There's roses in here somewhere, but I haven't seen them come up yet.
They come up later.
They come up later? Okay, oh no, there they are right there, I think. So,
Good luck.
yeah, there's a rose bush that comes up, and it dies every winter, and you trim that off, and then it'll come up again. So I don't know if it's the deer or the rabbits like to eat the rosebuds, so sometimes they don't last. Let's see. Oh yeah, about this driveway, there's a couple of gaps like this. I'm gonna try to fill this one in. I've got some Baccarat in there, and I'm just gonna put some sealant. But the seeds blow across the driveway, and they just find this gap, and then all these little weeds grow. So you can't keep it clean. The only way to fix it is to fill it. I'm probably not gonna get around to this one, but it does the same thing. It just needs a bunch of sealant poured in there. Let's see, what else? The bushes. They've gotten huge. These, I kind of wanted to pull them out and just replant them. They've just gotten so huge, so they look a little bit silly. They do provide privacy for the house, but it's hard to get on top of them to trim them, so it's hard to just keep them maintained because they've gotten a little out of hand. I will say there was an ice storm once, and this bush, you can see it's kind of separated there. That stick is structural. It's like holding up that branch because it kind of started to split. So if there's big, heavy, wet snow ice storm, sometimes I'll come out here with a broom and knock it all off. Let's see, do we know what these are called?
No.
Okay, there's like
we
this.
don't do anything with them.
Yeah, they come up every year. This is from last year, but they've got beautiful orange blossoms, whatever that is.
They're red. Big orange. I don't remember.
And then that's a rose bush that, yeah, if you don't trim the rose bush from last year, you get like 3 or 4 years of kind of the old stems built up.
We've never done anything with them.
Yeah, the previous owner planted this. They just come up every year, so.
They probably need to be maintained.
The grass out here is kind of a mix of, the grass grows pretty good here, but then it's sort of these greener weeds that come up here. But they look nice. I mean, they're green and they mow okay, so we've just let them grow. We've mostly been focusing on the backyard. So after 8 years, we're just starting to get the grass figured out. But man, it's not easy to grow a lawn in Colorado. So tons of water, fertilizing, dethatching, aerating. It's a whole thing. So the guy 2 yards down and the guy 3 yards that way, I don't know. There's some retired guys in the neighborhood that sort of haven't figured out, so they might have tricks that we didn't have. Oh, they have a service. Oh, there you go. Let's see. This was also a big overgrown bush, but it was blocking visibility for this intersection. So the city told the previous owner to cut it down. So, which they did, is the right thing to do. But they also don't like being told what to do, so they left the stump to let everybody know. So we left it too. This tree's not doing fantastic, honestly. I trimmed a lot of the dead branches out of it. I don't know if he's not getting enough water. The bottom limbs are doing okay, but then the top is not really leafing anymore. So I'm not sure what's going on with that guy. More bushes. This bush I trimmed the heck out of because the bottom inside was all kind of dead. So that's what you get when you trim them up. Again, it's just so big and difficult to trim. I think probably pulling these out is the best way to go. And it creates a ton of waste. And like the slash and mulch place doesn't take the juniper branches anymore. Too many people bring them in, I guess. So yeah, it's a lot of work just to get rid of the yard waste that those things generate. Let's see. This little planter area, previous owner had done it one way, and I sort of redid it to fix a bunch of things. The weeds were growing everywhere, the rocks were packed with dirt. So I sifted all that, I redid the rock wall. It was kind of leaning over the sidewalk, so I sort of graded it to be at a slope going backwards. There's one little iris survived, but the rest of this was just growing weeds. So I have plastic under here, landscaping fabric under here, and more plastic over here. This was not graded steeply enough away from the house. So I put the plastic in to shed water better, and I graded it back at a steeper angle. So yeah, the different materials under here because I did this in phases. I was just working with what I had. And these rocks just about broke my back sifting all these out. So this was all totally packed with dirt, growing weeds. In fact, it looked like this, because this is the side I didn't get around to. But yeah, it is so difficult to dig this up because it's like a concrete of dirt and rock. You can't get a shovel through it. So I ended up buying a small jackhammer from Harbor Freight, put a spade bit on it, and that got underneath it a lot better. So in an afternoon, you can dig up a whole stretch of it. And I built like a rock sifter thing to get the dirt out of it. So this stuff is great. You can see, again, those retired guys know how to take care of this. They'll be out there with leaf blowers, and the guy 2 doors down has like a leaf vacuum. And so he and his wife will go out there and she'll agitate it with a rake, and he'll vacuum the stuff up out of it. I thought it was silly the first time I saw it. Then I lived here for 8 years, and now I know the cost of not keeping these rocks clean. After a decade or two, they just grow tons of weeds, and it's really hard to keep them clean. So let's see. This retaining wall is awesome. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. It's super straight. A lot of them tend to lean after a while. Just a word of caution, the wasps love to nest in here, so especially there's a hole right there, and then another one down here in the corner. I've seen them come in and out, so I've doused them with poison. That seems to take care of it, but those voids really ought to be filled. Let's see. These 2 bushes I think are volunteers, I'm not sure. They're in kind of an odd spot. I thought about chopping them down, but I just left them. This bush is in pretty good shape. It's getting a little big. If it gets away from you, it can actually totally cover that and where the natural gas comes in. So I try to keep it trimmed, so if a utilities guy has to come in here, he can still get to it. And the backyard, This fence is in pretty good shape. There's some rot at the bottom of that post and that post. So I've always wanted to take a metal post like that and support it, maybe on like this second to last one. Those are like $60 though. So I do have, over behind the shed, there's some unistrut that I never got around to digging a hole for it and put it in, but that would fix this up pretty well. So yeah, it's fine unless there's a big windstorm, and then it tends to get a little shaky. We always called this the boat area. Previous owner had a boat in here. You also park an RV, so that whole section of fence is a gate that swings open to get access from the side road. So all you have to do is get over the curb, and then you could pull something big in here if you wanted. This will eventually grow weeds again. I've got it pretty clear right now, but I always wanted to put plastic down and dump a couple yards of like pea gravel in here, just to not have to worry about weed whacking it every couple of weeks. There's like this ornamental grass, grows from bulbs. It comes back every year. I thought I transplanted all of it around the side of the house, but more of it came back. So it's pretty happy as long as it stays close to a fence. Let's see, this area is all mulched. There's a huge stump here that I pulled out. More of that ornamental grass. This little spiky guy, not sure what he's called. More irises. There's a couple hollyhocks around the backyard. This one's doing pretty good. They'll grow super tall and have beautiful blossoms. And then this fence is pretty well cooked. You're not really supposed to grow vines on it like this because it just encourages bugs and moisture, but the fence is so ugly we just kind of we encourage them to grow to cover it up with some green. So we let the ivy grow. This fence is pretty much being held up by those stumps and trees on the other side. And you can see here and over on that fence too, I've got 2x4s just scabbed on to make things a little bit more rigid. So the fence will eventually need a little work. Yeah, and this ivy, it will grow up and up and up, and then it runs out of fence and it flops over, and then you have 2 layers of ivy, and then it'll grow up again. So it will get real bushy and start to pull away from the fence. So I try to trim it when it flops like that a couple times a summer. It grows pretty aggressively, so it ends up needing quite a bit of trimming just to not get so bushy that it's choking itself out. Another big stump. Super glad the previous owner took out some of these dead trees. That I dug up about, I don't know, half, 2/3 of that. There is some left. And then there's, the neighbor has some apple trees and other trees that are on the other side of the fence. A lot of this green here is actually little suckers coming up from those trees, and it just drops seeds and stuff. So not super crazy about those. They grow through the fence and kind of tear it up. So sometimes I try to cut them down, but they're pretty dug in. So not sure what to do to get rid of those. See, we mulched this area. That's one of the early places we mulched. Just put some cheap ground cover in so it would stop growing weeds. I did this one on a budget, so it's not as decorative as the mulch over there, and it has sheets of cardboard underneath. I sort of read up on it, and that was a sort of cheap environmental way to do a weed barrier. But honestly, the cardboard pretty much disintegrated immediately, so it's starting to grow some dandelions and things. So this probably needs another layer of mulch, or maybe even raked back and a proper plastic weed barrier put down. So here's the garden area. We enjoyed gardening while we were here. We had, I would say, the most success this last year, right? So one of the things we did different was we put up a hail net the last year. So you can see there's an anchor point here, and I slung a line over the ridge of the shed up to a hook there that is still there, and then just draped a hail cloth over it and tied it off at the corners.
Yeah.
That was much easier. It didn't have to worry about running out here to try to cover things every time there's a summer hailstorm. So, yep, there's some strawberries.
And it
still
helps
growing.
with the sun.
Yeah, I got a little sun off
It
of
gets
it.
really hot in this backyard.
Right. Yeah, the previous owner left us some strawberries growing by a downspout, so we're leaving some strawberries in the garden. There's that unistrut. The last thing is just this side area. That was one of the things on the inspection when we bought the place, was there was a dip over here, so I pulled all these rocks up and regraded it away from the house, and kind of got the rocks in all nice, and so they're not tippy or growing stuff in between, weed barrier underneath. That's kind of the official section, and then I had leftover rocks that I just tiled out here, so these are just sort of laying around. And more hollyhocks. This section of fence is probably the most dilapidated on the property. So I don't know if the previous owner did this, but it's kind of acting as a fence and a retaining wall for the area back behind it is much higher, which wood fences are not good at doing. So yeah, that probably needs to be all pulled up. What I always wanted to do was pull this fence out entirely, pull that back fence out entirely, and then put a gate here instead, and then you'd be able to access the backyard from the driveway more quickly. So that's it. That's all I know about the history of the landscaping and kind of what we've done while we were here.